Hey YouTube, I'm Blaze, and this is a follow-up to last week's hero counters video. So this is going to be villain counters, so I'm going to go through each of the villains, and I'm going to name their counters, so that you can know how to deal with those guys in a Heroes vs Villains match, for example. So when you come across these guys, you know to play them more carefully, and you know what actually in that kit counters you. So let's say you know that Chewy's stun grenade heavily counters you, you can see when Chewy throws a stun grenade and you can choose that opportunity to attack him, because that's when he's going to be weakest, and just generally can really help you win those Heroes vs Villains matches. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe if you haven't done already, like this video and leave a comment for what video you want me to do next. And then jumping into it, we're going to start with Iden, whose counter is undoubtedly Obi-Wan, or maybe Anakin as well, because Iden does have a shock ray which can go through Obi-Wan's defensive rush. However, Obi-Wan's other two abilities do actually have detrimental effects to Iden. His mind trick, for example, will just completely end Iden. She's standing there immobile, she can't even pop a shield, and she's going to get taken out really quick. And there's literally nothing she can do against Obi-Wan's force push as well. And take note that when Iden sends out her shock grenade, Obi-Wan can push that force push, and he won't actually get shocked. Anakin could also be a semi-counter to Iden as well, because his abilities are very strong, although to be fair, Anakin's just generally OP, particularly against non-lightsaber users, so there you go. Speaking of Anakin, Anakin is also a counter to Kylo for a few reasons. Firstly, Anakin has a block, which does actually counter a lot of Kylo's kit, although what separates Anakin from the other lightsaber users is that he also has much higher damage than Kylo, so in a slash duel, Anakin will win even with Kylo's frenzy. Not only that, but his pull is better than Kylo's. In fact, if they both pull it off at the same time, Anakin will actually win. Kylo's block, which is the only bit which saves him when he's not dancing around his enemies, is one thing that Anakin actually can break through, and whenever Kylo is using Frenzy or even just a pull or a freeze animation, Anakin has 3 out of his 4 abilities which can knock Kylo down and do heavy damage, so basically Anakin will steamroll Kylo. Anakin also counters Phasma along with Han and Leia for separate reasons each. Firstly, Anakin's reasons are that he can pull Phasma out of her turret, and he can also use his heroic might in the middle of her turret, which is actually quite detrimental to Phasma, because unless she rolls out the way, she will take heavy damage and be knocked away from her turret. Additionally, because of Anakin's high health and high damage, he can stand in the turret's radius, get shocked the first time, Phasma will shoot in the head a couple of times, he won't take too much damage even after a whole shock, and then he'll be able to pretty much take up Phasma before the turret recharges its shock again. So if you're playing as Phasma, just stay away from that Anakin. Even turret camping won't help you here. And then the second reasons for Han and Leia is simply that they've got really high DPS, they're blast heroes so they can stay outside the turret's radius. Han has a detonate charge which can be used to throw Phasma outside, and Leia has a shield which will actually block the turret's shock. So let's say the turret's in a choke point or in a particular doorway, Leia can put down that turret and walk past that doorway easily. She can even peek out of the shield if you're particularly careful, and you can shoot Phasma whilst in the droid's radius but still not get shocked. Now for Palpatine, whose counter is undoubtedly Han because he has such high damage and his detonate charge can be used to disrupt Palpatine, and for some reason it's really easy to hit Palpatine when he's floating in the air, especially as Han, and because of the rate at which Palpatine falls, if you just go for a regular body shot, it usually ends up turning into a headshot because Palpatine has fallen so far by the time you have shot. Although, to be fair, Leia can also work, as she also has very high DPS here as well. And take note, the kind of soft counter to Palpatine is Yoda, because when Yoda uses his overheal ability, all his teammates suddenly have a ton of health, and because Palpatine has low DPS, that makes it very hard for Palpatine to do anything, but that's mainly in Galactic Assault. And now for Grievous, who's a pretty easy one. Obviously, any blast heroes are going to do particularly well against him because he's got a very weak block. Finn is particularly good at this because not only can he break through Grievous's block and start damaging pretty much immediately, but his Deadeye ability tracks Grievous through his Claw Rush, which is very useful, and Han's also really good at Grievous because his Detonate charge can throw Grievous off his Claw Rush. Bob is also pretty obvious, with Finn being able to track him mid-air with his Deadeye ability, and his blaster having pretty good long range as well. Not only that, but Finn's extra health ability can also help counter Boba Fett's Rocket Barrage, particularly when you couple it with a roll or something to throw off Boba's aim. Chewie completely counters both Dooku and Vader, who are slow-moving, close-range villains, because once they try and move up on Chewie, he has 3 abilities which will completely melt them at that range. His stun grenade will stop them in their tracks, and he'll be able to put some serious damage and distance between him and his target. His charge slam will just completely immobilize them, which is very useful, particularly when Chewie's got a team around him, and his Furious Bowcaster, well, that will just completely rip through both Dooku and Vader. Next up we have Bosk, who is countered by Yoda for a few reasons. Firstly, Yoda's block can completely remove his proximity mines, and when his micro grenades land in front of Yoda, Yoda can also absorb all of the damage from that as well. Not only that, but Yoda's presence ability pretty much completely negates Bosk's Dioxis gas, and in Galactic Assault, I know this video is about Heroes vs Villains, but aside, in Galactic Assault, Yoda especially counters Bosk because all of his teammates get extra health as well, and when Bosk has his micro grenades up, dealing that damage to, 350 assaults is very difficult for him. Additionally, Yoda's small hitbox makes him pretty much impossible to hit when Bosk doesn't have his micro grenades up, so if you're playing Bosk, you definitely want to avoid those Yodas. Lastly, we have Maul, who is countered by Lando for two of Lando's abilities basically, and his blaster as well. The first thing is Lando's Disabler, which is just going to stop Maul no matter how many dashes he's doing. The Disabler is a really large AoE, so Lando just activates that. Maul is standing there with only 700 health. Lando fires a few into his head and he's already on half health, or quarter health even sometimes. Also, Lando's Sharpshot ability will just deal 200 damage to a running away Maul, pretty much guaranteed, and if Maul comes at Lando slashing at him, Lando can pretty much deal exactly the same damage, if not more, to Maul's face. Anyway, that's going to round up that video. Hope you enjoyed. Like if you did, subscribe for more content like this. Bye.